What's up, guys? I'm SaltEMike, and this is your Star Citizen Week in Review for November 28th, 2022. Hull stripping is finally locked in. Also, IAE continues until November 30th, with a couple new ships introduced, one of which caused a little bit of drama. All that and more on today's Week in Review. And as always, if this is your first week in review, this is where I take all of the official Star Citizen news each week, put it into one video, and share some of my opinions about it. I also live stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/SaltEMike, starting at 6:30 a.m. Eastern Time every day but Monday, so I can get this video out to you guys. We do have quite a bit to get through this week. We're going to start out with more of that IAE news. And we'll start out with the Anvil Aerospace Day. They hinted at it last week, and they showed it to us this week, the C8R. It is a medical variant of the C8, the snub ship for the Anvil Carrack. It's $60 US and has a couple of cool paint options, and they also had a Q&A about it. So for that Q&A, they started out basically asking why I would choose this over the Cutlass Red, and the main response was its size, which is easier to maintain because it's just smaller. Maintenance in Star Citizen, it doesn't exist. So there's very little refueling costs and things like that for ships, repair. They're in the game, but they're not really a sync yet that would create a reason for you to purchase this ship over another, right? It just doesn't really exist in the game yet. And that's been their selling point for a lot of ships for many years, especially Drake ships, right? Is their low cost of maintenance, but they're all low cost, so what's the big deal here? We don't really have any idea how that plays out, so I don't really see a point of them using that as a selling option yet until we know exactly how it's going to work in the actual game in the future. But then the next question was around the ship's speed, and they basically said that it's faster, but it's faster when flying in things like atmosphere and in space. The actual SCM speeds and cruise speeds and whatever we'll have when the new flight model changes. But the quantum distance has lowered. And that's kind of interesting because if you've ever tried to do medical beacons before, half the time, or I should say 90% of the time, the guy who died, he's on the other side of the planet, or not on the other side of the planet, on the other side of the system. So it's going to take you a long time to get there, right? So I would have thought that the fuel capacity would have been a selling feature of this one, but okay. And then lastly, they talked a little bit about the bed here, and what they talked about in particular was power. And I found that to be interesting because power is going to be a thing. It's something that they're actively working on now, and how's that going to play out? Is that going to be a burden with this or not? I find that to be interesting, as well as power was slightly mentioned about the bed when it came down to signature for ships as well. And then, yeah, the other part is it's a medical tier 3 bed, so no respawning, and you could only heal the lowest injuries. So it's not that big of a deal, but it is quite useful when in conjunction with other larger ships like the Carrack. Very neat, right? Then we moved on to Argo, Consolidated Outland, Grey Cat Industrial, and Kruger Intergalactic, and nothing really happened here, so there wasn't really much to sell other than a yellow skin for the Mustang. I never noticed that one before. It was $3, so pretty cheap and looking pretty good, especially for the Test Squadron people out there. Then for Crusader, not a lot to sell here either. I did see a paint on the Ares, which was like this teal color that I've never seen. Let me know in the comments down below if that's been sold before, but that one looked pretty cool. Misk, literally nothing to add here. So then, yeah, after the C8R, everyone's focus was really on the next day, and that was RSI, and that's where they came to the party with a new offering, the Galaxy. Now, it is a concept offering, $380 for stock, but it has a bunch of modules you can buy, and there was like tons of different options that range from this $380 with nothing and $530 to it just went astronomical from there with all the different packages and stuff. They did have modules. This ship is a modular ship. Now, unlike other ships, like, I guess, the Caterpillar, which is where I would make the comparison here, the Caterpillar was never sold with modules. It just had the cargo modules on it, but never any additional offerings. These were $70 to $90 each. The price of a Gladius for a module on one of these ships, they're getting ballsy with these prices now. Complete packs again going for an upwards of $500, and yeah, that's the price. But we'll go into more details in the video section for this ship because they do have a feature length part of that on ISC. Now, I've spoken at length about my feelings around concept sales and the way things have been over the last couple of years on both my channels. If you're interested in hearing more about that, make sure you check out Answer the Call. We had a star-studded cast of Burks, Morphologists, Zero State, and I was just there along for the ride, where we talked about this at length. So if you guys want to check that out, that is here on this channel, and I did react to ISC on my second channel where I did talk a lot about this as well. Then we had Best in Show Day, and that's just basically where all the winners from the Best in Show contest are highlighted. And there was 4 ships, and they all have a cool red paint. Now, if you own them, you get that paint automatically, or you can buy it during the expo to get that paint with it, which is pretty cool. But they also came with more stuff this time, which is they had armors that are red, weapons that are red, and these really cool model with some coins related. If you had owned any of these ships, we talked about it a couple weeks ago. Very, very cool stuff. And that's the Intergalactic Aerospace Expo. It's going to go until the 30th, but I think that's all they really have to offer aside from some of the Jax videos that we've been seeing. So I don't know if there's going to be any more of those, but that is it. And that is kind of another year of tons of ship sales in the books. And hopefully next year it's talking a lot more about gameplay and a lot less about ships, but we'll have to see. But for the roadmap update, we're going to keep talking about ships. The Drake Cutter and that C8R that was debuted on Anvil Day are in the game now. So the 317 roadmap needs to reflect that, so they just added those cards there. Then also, this one's pretty big, confirmed for 318, is hull stripping. So it's not quite salvage yet, but that meme can kind of go to rest a little bit now because part of salvage is actually in the game, or it's going to be in the game, I should say, once 3.18 releases to the live servers. But that is really all we had for roadmap updates. So let's move on to video updates, where I think we're going to talk about more ships. And yes, like we said earlier, the RSI Galaxy was the feature for ISC, the main feature, I should say. And I want to start out with the interior discussion around the ship because it's a multi-crew ship. And that is what I feel to be the most important thing, especially a ship that's modular.
Starting at the bridge, it's a central bridge that looks down onto the main part of the ship. Directly behind that, in the top deck, you have the habitation section. So you'll have a shared habitation space, and then moving further back, you have individual bedrooms, as well as the captain having their own office as well as bedroom. Behind that, you have the engineering section that looks down onto the hangar area. And it's probably one of my favourite parts of the ship, because it has a nice look down onto the actual hangar, which is a rear-loading hangar, which is really cool in my opinion. The floor beneath that is where the module is, within the centre of the ship. It's a relatively large space for the different modules you might need. And directly connecting to the module section, there's the hangar.
Now, my favorite part of that is the hangar, personally. I just like the way it opens up. It feels like you're coming out of a hangar at a proper station, which is really cool. Also, Zyloh did confirm that this is going to be an extra, extra small or a size 1 hangar. So only very small ships like the Pisces are going to be able to fit in it. Not anything large, I don't think, like the Gladius or anything, right? Then, we haven't talked about the modules yet, and that's probably the most important thing about the ship.
So the 3 modules that are available are a cargo module, which increases the cargo capacity of the ship significantly.
There's a refinery module, which is, it's got a sweep mechanism with the underneath where the cargo ramp opens, and we've got the saddlebag deposit. So this thing's going to work really well with something like a prospector.
And then the last one is a medical module.
The medical module is split into 2 halves. So in the very center, there's a lift that'll bring you up, so if there's anyone injured in a vehicle, you can get them straight into the actual medical wings. Alternatively, you can use the hangar at the back to fly someone in and unload them into the actual Galaxy. Inside the actual medical wing, you have an assortment of different tiered med beds for whatever injury the person might have sustained.
Now, you guys know I'm sold on the refinery side of things. If they ever deliver modularity, this is going to be a really nice ship. This is where you can have a true daily driver ship, and you can kind of pick and choose what you're going to do that day. It's something that they really sold in the video, and it's true. If they pull it off, it's true. And that's kind of the problem here, is they haven't done it yet. But they touch a little bit on modularity here.
Although it's been a while since we've showed off a modular ship or released any new ships that were modular, it isn't something that we wanted to move away from. Modular ships have a unique place in the universe because it helps push the multi-crew and multi-role ship. It's part of the reason why there's been less emphasis on multi-role ships in the universe recently. Now that we're getting closer to being able to deliver it, it's something we want to start revisiting again.
And sadly, what feels like by revisiting, he means reselling. And, you know, it's all great to revisit something and really work on it, but it's kind of been worked on the Retaliator, we've heard, but we don't know much about it, and it's kind of weird. Are you planning on revisiting it with this ship? Are you actually going to deliver modularity into the game with the Retaliator and then start working on the ship? It's just, there's not a lot of clear communication on this, and being vague is their forte. Being vague makes it so you don't really know what's going on, nobody knows what's going on, and you buy the ship because it looks cool, and that's all that really matters. And yeah, hopefully they deliver on delivering modularity and then start working on this ship at some point. But at the same time, what about the backlog, right? Then there was the C8R, and we discussed that at length earlier in the show, and I also shared all the images and video from the featurette that would have been here in ISC. So with that said, let's move on to other updates. And we don't have a ton here, and we'll basically just start out with the sneak peek, which is right here. It's the Santokiai, which is a medium or heavy fighter, I can't remember, and I guess that means that they're working on it, but as we just discussed about the Galaxy, they kind of showed the exterior of that in its hollow form, basically, and does that mean that they're working on the Not really. So I think we're going to need to see more from the Santokiai here if we're going to kind of take this sneak peek as anything. So maybe in the monthly report coming up, probably next week, as well as other things, maybe we'll hear more about this guy. And then Loremakers community questions. These are always pretty cool, and it's basically where community members can post questions to the lore team, and they'll answer them. So some of the questions that were asked are, what are political parties in the UEE? What are some of the less known ones, basically? And then what happens to our bodies when we die? Link in the description for the entire post if you guys want to check that out. And that'll do it for this week. So thank you so much for watching, guys. That was Week in Review. As always, I really enjoyed making it. I hope you enjoyed watching it. If you did, please hit the like button. It really does help. Share the video around. That helps us even more. And hit subscribe for more Weeks in Review. And I'll catch you guys next week. Thank you so much for watching.